then we had some other things. The whole ward has been done up by another family in the name of somebody whose father passed away. And so we get a lot of things from that trust, but the government supports us as well, because we probably in terms of return, in the government institute we are probably one of the good ones. Okay, so guys, hands on please from So cannulation technique पे तो एक पूरा talk है, and that is a wonderful talk that Khalid gives. So I'll just touch on the wire guided technique that we just had, and we'll have opinions from Dr. Vakar and जब आपका cannula यहाँ आ गया है, and what is the advantage of having a wire coming out? Obviously, cannula tone की एक tip is about 0.4, 0.5 mm, 0.4, 4 or 5 French. So if you take a wire, a 0.35 wire, now you look at the size of that wire. So if you guide it direct properly, then you get access into one of the duct, or at least into the ampulla much better. Especially if it's a difficult ampulla, it's a small ampulla, you're not sure about which way opening ऐसी बड़ी tight होती है. You have different types of ampulla. Also sometimes very floppy ampulla because you just can't get in. So some people now routinely use wire. So they'll have a little bit of wire out. Now the wire doesn't have to be too much, but also not too little. Maybe about 3 to 5 mm. That's what I would say. And you aim to the duct that you want. Once you've got in the wire, this is what I do. Once the wire is in, then my technician actually just gently pulls the wire back a little bit. Okay? And as he pulls the wire a millimeter or two back, the cannulotome actually gets into the thing. Once it's actually there, then you can see if you can manipulate the wire more. Because you try and cannulate just with the wire, it will become floppy and come out, or it will not move. So it has to be followed with a cannula, or in our case, all three of us, cannulotome. And to me, the idea is getting the cannulotome inside the ampulla. Engaged. Once it's engaged, you can then manipulate. If you want the CBD, you can use the bow, you can use different maneuvers, and then get it. So that's wire guided or wire directed cannulation. Okay. If you don't get in that way, what do you do? What options do we have? We tried the cannulotome, tried the guide wire, still can't get it.
Change
what?
The cannulotome, use the swing tip, maybe
Swing tip.
wire.
I've never used the swing tip. You may have experience of swing tip. I've never used it.
I have used it not for cannulation.
How would swing tip help you in cannulation?
Maybe
So you've actually not got in.
So positioning
No matter what ampulla, cannulotome you use, unless you get engaged properly, how are you getting? You're not going to be able to use the technology. So what my point was, if you use the wire and you can't get in, what do you generally do? So you strike cannula. You've got right position. You shouldn't be cannulating if you don't have good position. We said that already. So reposition what?
Reposition again.
What?
Engage again.
Engage again. No, you've tried that. You tried engaging your cannulotome. You couldn't do it. You tried the wire. You couldn't do it. Now the two techniques have gone. These are the two standard ones.
we can inject a little bit of dye to see if we can find the right way, if we are not maybe engaging in the right direction.
You can do that, but that's a very dangerous thing. You know why?
It might go into the pancreatic duct.
That doesn't bother
If
me.
you are not able to drain the system later on, it will end up with cholecystitis.
More than that, there's something else that worries me. More than these two. Pancreatic duct injection doesn't worry me at all, as long as you've not over-injected. We are now we've gone to the other extreme where we are too scared to inject in the bank. You shouldn't be scared, you should be careful. Okay. But what is the other risk that's worrying me? Because I'm the one who's now going to be called and said, look sir, we have done everything but we can't cannulate. You've actually injected and the ampulla is swollen up. So you've injected and you made it difficult. Some people would say it's easy to do a sphincterotomy or needle knife once you've done that, but then you've made it difficult. Okay, so my worry is that if I'm not engaged properly in the duct and I inject, so what do we do in this situation if we do that and if we have to inject? I tell him, you'll only look at the ampulla. You'll not look at the fluoro, because normally we both are looking at the fluoro. So focus on the ampulla, inject, and in some ways, because my X-ray is just here, I'll be focusing there as well, kind of partly. But his job is the moment there is a little bit of swelling, he has to stop. So if you're going to do that, in my opinion, that's probably the only way to do it. If you want to add anything, both of you, I don't know if you do anything differently in this situation where you want to inject and you're not completely in the duct. That's what you would do now. And your technician has to be very smart because he has to know, okay, it's going to be slow and little bit. As soon as you've got the roadmap, then obviously you can manipulate and do it. But okay, you've done that and little bit of swelling maybe. And no, I don't know.
roadmap.
Huh? So what next do you do? Good Lord. I was hoping one of you would say, I'll call my
I
supervisor.
will call
Supposedly my supervisor are already taken up the case.
So what I'm saying is, if you attempted your wire guide, how comfortable are you with needle knife? Okay. How much time have you spent? We all have our own, algorithms, if you want to call them, or our own thresholds for needle knife. I know when I look at the ampulla, sometimes I'd say, not happening. So 2 goes and that's it. If I don't get in 2 goes, I'll not get it, period. I'll not go for the 3rd go because I know I will not. Very unlikely. There are certain ampullas and we show the pictures and all. Sometimes you'll get in. There's just that feel. So he will have his own, I'm sure, thing, algorithm where he will draw his line. 3 pancreatic duct cannulations. Is that where you stop? Do I always do that? I don't. So that's where once I've gone into pancreatic duct 3 times, I start thinking, there's an issue here. If I don't get, with my experience with that, then I know at my level that I'm only going to harm my patient. So maybe I'd go for needle knife. What would you do? What is your cutoff? How do you decide?
I think it depends entirely on the case. Because sometimes, for Father Guide, if you keep on going there, I just leave the wire in the pancreatic duct. And then either use a rubber wire, can we put a stent there and can we make lower the stent. So it depends on the thing. Because if you keep on repeatedly hitting the pancreatic duct, because
So here we've got 2 different scenarios. One is where you're getting into the pancreatic duct, so you're getting ductal cannulation, but you're not getting the duct you want. And then the other scenario you're talking about is you're not just getting any duct from the ampulla. When you're not getting any duct, after you've done the wire guided, I think you have no option but to get somebody who can do a needle knife and get it. If you've done it
the
properly.
advantage with leaving the wire in the pancreatic duct is that if you hold on to that wire and just with a bit of pressure on it, you pull the wire and the pancreatic duct down and separate it from your common wire. It's quite helpful at times. And you can then go on top of that. Because what I tend to do is exert a little bit of pressure on the wire, just enough to separate out open up the ampulla, and that opens up your CBD for you.
So Wakaru and Dr. you also, when you are doing repeated pancreatic cannulation, you either do a double wire technique,
Yes.
which I think is useful,
Yeah.
and it
What
should
about the
always
CBD?
be tried. It's worth trying. And I found it useful quite a few times. I don't do it always, but the Do you, both of you, do you put a pancreatic stent before you do a needle knife in this patient, where you've got into pancreatic duct a few times, whatever your threshold is, or do you just leave the wire, do a sphincterotomy, a needle knife, and then put a stent afterwards if necessary?
My preference is to put a stent first, and then do the needle knife
Over the stent.
Originally, there are two approaches: top down,
Top down.
per se angle or go over.
So which one do you prefer, top down or
Top down.
So you go top down?
I go top.
I preferentially do the triangulation with the wire in by using
Right.
the pressure so that and usually that works. I usually use the up
Bottom
technique,
up.
bottom up. Sometimes, very rarely, if I'm doing ERCP in a high risk patient for pancreatitis, like young women, I do a sphincterotomy needle knife, essentially, for pancreatitis. In that case, I do a top down. That's great feature, but that's
So,
very advanced technique.
so bottom line is that if your wire guided technique, wire guided or wire directed technique does not get it, fails, then you have to think about opening the ampulla. If you are getting into the pancreatic duct, then you need to make sure that your access to the pancreatic duct remains. If you're not, it's better to put a stent and do a cut, because the risk of pancreatitis, as it is in someone you've already gone in a few times, is high, and now you're doing a needle knife, that in itself would increase the risk. So it's best put a pancreatic stent and then do a needle knife. Having said that, I don't think we are there. Okay, so we would forget it. I will tell you that both Shahryar and Sajda had to do almost 1500 ERCPs before I allowed them to do needle knife
Just
independently. Okay, so 1500 ERCPs. I'm going to
There is
take.
no harm in putting the PD stent and stopping.
Yeah,
You can go. That is again a stop
Exactly,
point.
it's safe.
You are still doing what's right for the patient. So you can
if you put a PD stent, you say pancreatitis, the patient is exactly the way he was or she was before you started. Go home, relax, let somebody else sweat.
And you've done more for that patient than trying one more time.
Absolutely. And that's a very
But
well.
that's one more time, even after the needle knife, you are not able to go into the
Beta Akram,
within how many
Akram
days
को
you
बुलाओ।
will get it?
Maybe get that. I think it depends on the indication. After the obviously cholangitis type situation, then you have to call for backup and try and move things along faster. And the cancer, obviously you don't have that much of an urgency. Give it 72 hours. I mean, it's variable. Nowadays, of course, with EUS, I'll just give you like personal bias. कि हम लोगों का इतना ज़्यादा emphasis वो है gone to the spectrum कि भाई we will step to the next level with this type of treatment. So the but again, as a beginner, I would suggest the main thing is patient safety. नहीं हो रहा, stop and give it. If you don't have anybody as a senior, give it 2 or 3 days after needle knife. I don't know after you get
I think after needle knife, you don't have to cannulate same time.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially if it's a mess up, you've spent too much time with the patient, don't.
Yeah.
Leave it, call the patient back any time after 3 to 5 days. You will go in so nicely. Sometimes you can see the bloody bile coming out and say, okay, so that there is no point, and especially early, you're only going to mess up everything. I think pancreatic stent is very important. If you're getting pancreatic duct, you can't do anything. Put a pancreatic stent, usually a small one. Okay, ideally 3 French, 4 French, but we only have 5 French. So we put a 5 French. I tell the patient, I put it in the report that this pancreatic stent has to come out. I'll share in the next 2 days some of the complications we have seen, horrible ones. Young female gynecologist from Lahore, standard stent, migrated. They tried to take it out, bent, literally like this. Eventually came to us, took the stent out, tight stricture, put a stent in again, went back to Lahore, stent taken out because you don't need it. Bad stricture, so bad that I had to use a Swendra stent retriever to actually go through that stricture. Now she's got 3 stents in, but I don't know whether she would be able to function without stents. Whether she'll end up requiring surgery, we don't know, but we've now gone from that level to 3 stents and she's doing well at the moment. But what I'm saying is that little preventive stent is, if you're going to use straight, I don't use straight stents, I use single pigtail pancreatic stents for all pancreatic stenting. I do not use straight stents, period. Okay, I don't want 1 out of 1,000 case to do this. I don't care what the statistics is, but I've seen 1 and that's enough for me. Again, single pigtail stents are available. If you don't have them and you have to put, then make sure that your distal tip into the small ball is actually out, significantly out, so that it migrates this side, doesn't go in. You're only allowing, the stent is only keeping the pancreatic duct, this proximal pancreatic duct or the pancreatic opening patent, that's all it's doing. You don't need to have it all over. You don't need it in the duct. So small stent, most of it out is good enough. You only need it for the first 24 to 48 hours. So that's it. Maybe 24 only, not even 48.
And pigtail is not haram. Something of a
Pig is not. That's a good point. Okay, come on. Candidate, and you just
if आपका stent डल जाए, you still have one more option before you try it with the stent.
absolutely.
Don't discount that as an option.
Yeah, I think it's very, very good point. Once you put a stent, like double wire technique, once you put a stent, you always try and see if you can get into the CBD, and sometimes you can. Yeah, absolutely. Chalo.
Yes, sir.
So what we are going to do is a wire exchange. So you get into any duct. It's not about getting into pancreatic. It's just about understanding how do you talk to him about, we need to put this wire through, and we'll then put the stent as well. Get the stent ready.
Yes, stent.
मैं वकार को हमेशा कहता हूँ कि हमारे यहाँ जो है ना वो मैंने इन लोगों को कहा नहीं इस दफ़ा कि none of us are actually professors. So आप लोग relax करें, आप लोग relax करें. It should be a very cordial and relaxed environment. You should ask questions. The more you ask questions, the more I think you're interested and you're learning. The less you ask questions, I'm not sure whether we are making sense to you or maybe we are telling you too much basic.
यार जो मैं तो अपने पेरेंट्स कहता हूँ कि अभी पूछोगे तो मैंने आज के रीच स्टेज अप्लाई मुश्किल हो जाएगी यार अब तो मैं 5 साल आपको पूछते भी शायद this is the time to ask.
The most useful questions are the most silly, in my opinion. That's where you learn the most. बहुत calculated सवाल होता है, नहीं वो बहुत calculated सवाल होता है, वो इसलिए होता है कि आपने दूसरे आदमी को impress किया. हमें तो यही सिखाया गया.
Yes.
Okay. So it doesn't matter. You're in CBD, good, well done.
Yes. So,
What looks in?
yes, please.
Relax for
Yes, go relax.
So
remove that sense.
you're going to exchange, but you tell him what you want to do. He doesn't know what exchange is. Exchange का क्या मतलब है? मैं तो आपका टेक्नीशियन हूँ, मुझे नहीं पता.
आप वायर को एडवांस करें,
Yes.
मैं कैनुला वायर एडवांस.
Yes.
Now, फ्लोरो के 2-3 पॉइंट्स बहुत अच्छे थे. I've seen people put फ्लोरो पे पैडल पे और वो सारा एक्सचेंज फ्लोरो पे कर रहे हैं. Absolutely unnecessary. Fluoro by and large is except for when you're injecting, you need dynamic. Otherwise, you just need a spot fluoro to know where you are. I don't now inject in any of the ducts unless I have full access. Okay? So if I'm in pancreas, I don't inject. That's enough for me. Unless I want pancreatic duct. But if I want pancreatic duct and I know that there's a stricture, let's say in the mid pancreatic duct, then I will only inject once my cannula is gone through. In the same way in CBD, I don't inject anymore. Okay?
Yes.
Very small number of cases where we are not able to pass the wire just to see what the track is like. And that also is very small. I will inject and fill the duct where I need the anatomy. Okay? Once I've actually crossed the step. So that I know that I will drain this system. Okay? I don't think and we may differ on this. I don't think if you're doing a palliative ERCP, you know that you need to pass a stent, that you need to know the anatomy. What the hell for? Why should you inject so much unnecessarily? आपको तो सिर्फ एक पैलिएशन करनी है. आपने देख लिया कि यहाँ पे obstruction है, बस खत्म. अब भी इंट्राहेपेटिक सिस्टम को भरे जा रहे हैं. आपको देखना है क्या करेंगे देख के. What are you going to achieve? Of course, if you want pancreatic or biliary anatomy, then you need to inject and see everything. You're doing a stone extraction, you can't see stone. Where is the guy? हम निकल किया. We injected a lot because we thought there was a stone. We couldn't see a stone. Didn't come out. We thought it came out. You know, एक वो color की वजह से. So that was. I kept on doing it. I needed to make sure here everything is okay. I haven't missed anything. That's okay, and I had full access. I think it's a big mistake that you keep injecting and now you put in, like Dr. Saab said, stent नहीं डाल सके आप,
Yes, pull back.
और आपने inject कर दिया.
Yes. pull
That's
back.
the worst you can do to your position, my dear. Now you see what has happened. In बातों में you've come a little bit further. When you're putting a stent, you need to be literally almost kissing the ampulla. जितना distance तुम रखोगे, stent is heavy. You have the whole assembly. The wire in the CBD maximum is what, 12 centimeters, 15 centimeters max. जरा सा उस पे weight पड़ेगा, आपने distance किया, सारा जो weight है scope का वो is going to come here, wire will come like this. And that's really tragic if it's a difficult. Yeah, I mean you need to be close. That's good enough if you're happy.
Put back.
Yes, wire pull back.
The traditional teaching for putting a stent is that you advance it and you lift the elevator.
Back.
Goes in, you advance it, you lift the elevator. The elevator actually advances it up. In standard, not so difficult ERCPs, maybe it's okay. But when you have a difficult procedure, I think there's a lot of pressure on the elevator, and once the elevator breaks here, doctor, we can't repair it. It's pathetic, the repair system. So once the elevator goes, you almost lose the scope in our system.
So how much traction should be
Back.
applied?
Every time you put and the ampulla goes away, you need to ensure that it comes back. So your position should not change. So you stop breathing, stop moving, and make sure that your cannula is. So this time when I am doing this, nothing is moving at your level. That's a good position for me. I love that. I don't know. The closer you are, the more happy I am, because I know it's very unlikely that tomorrow stent is over. Okay. So are you talking to him? I haven't seen you talk. He's doing it, right?
He is talking to him.
You need to. Because अगर आप नहीं करोगे और उसने why is it important? He doesn't pull back the wire. Wire ऊपर जाए कहीं फंसा हुआ है duct में. He's not pulling it back. You're trying to advance. You'll not move. This will fall back here. Okay? The distance आपका बढ़ जाएगा. Because the wire now become a resistance. It is giving resistance to your movement. So it's very important. The moment you realize नहीं बढ़ रहा, stop. So why are you pulling back? I haven't seen it come out. Pull back a little bit more. Pull back 2 centimeters. Fluoro short. Your wire is okay. 2 centimeter निकालो. 2 centimeter बाहर निकला, you go in, you move very easily. The reason why you don't move is because your wire is stuck at the distance. So if you're worried that your wire बाहर ना निकला है, just do a fluoro short. See where the wire is here. You've got it deep. Tell him 2 centimeters out. You can see it 2 centimeters.
Should I hold the wire continuously with elevator or no?
What? Which wire? Yeah, while you're going in, I think it's a good idea.
Then we feel
Well,
the
while
loss.
you're pulling out and cutting or going in, while your system is not out, you need to hold the wire because the wire then remains in that position. But definitely, otherwise, वो थोड़ा सा जो आपको pull कर रहा है, वो तो he's just easing this off for you. It's not coming out. You don't want the wire to come out.
Right.
The pulling back is just easing it going in. It's not coming out. अगर wire बाहर निकल रहा होता तो फिर तो मुश्किल हो जाता.
So हम जो back tension कहते हैं आप पर इसमें जो आपकी पॉइंट है कि communication has to be loud and clear.
Yeah, yeah, loud and
पता
clear.
होना चाहिए कि भाई
बातचीत
क्या
नहीं
है।
होगी तो आपको मैं बताऊं रियल लाइफ केस में इतना टाइम नहीं मिलता ना,
मतलब आपकी आवाज मुझे यहाँ तक आनी चाहिए and I can't hear you।
एंड पीछे से फिर मैं शोर करना शुरू
आपकी
करूंगा
इधर तक
डॉक्टर
मुझे
साहब
बात चाहिए कि आप मुझे क्या कह रहे हैं।
या वी आर वाचिंग यू।
हाँ।
Slow down. Here I will use the
कीप गोइंग। Another important thing is when you're trying to put in a cannula or something and your wire is stuck somewhere, you don't realize, खासतौर पे if you want a
stand.
system,
Yes, release the
wire will
stand.
turn and go into another system. So
Stand
you
release.
need to ensure that it's coming down nicely as you're going up. So it's very important. And at this time you can stop. If you imagine you had fluoro, I usually just check the distal end. This tells you this is about 6 centimeters apart. The markings on these, the ones that we've given you. So once the first one is almost in, the second one is going in, you know that you're, depending on where the stent is, you then put yours, I would put my foot on the fluoro and just look at the spot check that I'm okay, the wire is okay, this catheter, and then you can just. Do we need to fluoro for stenting? We need to use fluoro for placing a stent. Yes.
I would use flow. You need to see the upper limit and the lower limit to place it.
Where it is, if we are doing it for the stricture, definitely we have to have the anatomy where actually the stent has reached.
You already know where the stent should be. By the time, when you're placing a stent, you know whether you want to cover the distal end, mid end, or proximal CT. You would know that.
You would know.
Because that's how you've decided to use the size of the
Size of
stent.
the stent. Yes.
So is there a point using fluoro when you're actually placing stent when it's going smoothly? Is there a point?
For the middle and distal stricture, I think not. But for the proximal stricture, IR, right left system, I think it's good to use.
That's
I think for the distal stricture, really, you don't need to use the stent if it's going smoothly. If there's any problem, then you can, or you can use a spot. Why? Reason I raise this is I've seen people press the pedal, and they're actually following the whole stent. What's the point? You can see this happening here. You don't really need it.
Yes, pull back the catheter.
Pull back the catheter.
Yes, pull back the catheter. Yes,
Should be.
Pull back.
yes, pull back.
जब स्टेंट आएगा तो वो आपको पुश करेगा थोड़ा सा. अब इसमें ये इम्पोर्टेंट है कि जब आप डाल रहे हो, पहले आप कैथेटर डाल रहे हो, you keep your elevator up. When you get the knock, you open it, allow the black guiding catheter to go through. Once you've done that, ठीक है ना, you will feel the stent come and knock, because for stent you don't really need to up the elevator. But once the stent comes, you then become careful and the communication becomes strong. जी डॉक्टर साहब, अब क्या कर सकते हैं? आपके ऑप्शंस बता दें मुझे क्विकली. एडवांसिंग द स्टेंट, इसी पे रोकते हैं, स्टॉप एंड जस्ट टेल मी व्हाट ऑप्शंस डू यू हैव टू एडवांस द स्टेंट.
In case of filling any resistance,
No case of filling resistance. What 3 options you have for it or more of pushing or advancing, not pushing, advancing the stent in?
I will close the ampulla more by uplifting
The elevator?
elevator.
Okay, so that's one option.
Second will be the big wheel.
Big wheel. Third?
Third by pulling out of the
Yes, and
second.
And one which you can actually see on the patient is using your left right as well. Okay, this movement you can actually advance the scope. In standard distal strictures which are not very tight, you can literally use big wheel and just a little bit of torque. This advances the stent in. So you don't really need to use the elevator. It's important. This is the Pakistani perspective. Try and avoid using elevator as much as you can. Where you can't, where you have to, you have to. But where at least you don't need to do. This is not applicable to the Western world. ठीक है, चले जा लेते हैं. यहाँ से निकाल दें स्टेंट, so थोड़ा सा resistance है तो that will test you. I have not seen you.
Yes, pull back the catheter.
You see, you've just done this and you're actually advancing. Good, well
Yes,
done.
pull back.
Pull back the catheter.
Yes, pull back.
ठीक है, that's good.
Over and on.
अब आप एक चीज देखें आपने क्या किया, ये आपने पुल बैक किया है बट योर कैथेटर इज आउट, ओके, योर गाइडिंग कैथेटर इज नॉट देयर, यू हैवंट, अभी तो आपने निकालने को तो नहीं बोला था ना, so your guiding catheter should not have come out. What happens sometimes, it's a good thing that we've seen here, आपका guiding catheter is railroading, your stent is going over the guiding catheter. If you pull back your guiding catheter and now try and advance the stent, you'll not be able to do it, especially if it's a stricture. Once it goes into the bigger duct, you pass the stricture, it will still go through and you'll be able to salvage it. But if you pull the catheter, now you're trying and it's not going up because there is nothing that it can slide over. Okay, so if it stops, you stop, fluoro. Oh God, my guiding catheter is no big deal. Advance the guiding catheter again. Tell him to advance the guiding catheter, make sure it's now in the right position, fluoro, start again. ठीक है, अभी आपका इसमें guiding catheter बाहर आ गया था, so now do the same thing. Advance the guiding catheter.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's out, right? आप जाने दो अपना.
Yes.
Or advance, 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 advance. Now you hold it, so now it's kind of stuck here. अब डालें आप अभी. Therefore, if he's not pulling back, see what's happening? I'm holding it, the stent stopped now. Pull back.
Yes. Pull back.
It should start going. But I think it just stuck there. So, this just to show that if your system is not freely moving, वायर के ऊपर कैथेटर नहीं जाएगा, कैथेटर के ऊपर स्टेंट नहीं जाएगा. It's very important that they are actually moving. Moving in opposite direction. Moving opposite direction. Or same direction depending on what you do. ठीक है? Okay, that's fine. So that's the thing that you need to work on is talking. Technician, he's your best friend. He is my most special person when I'm actually doing this. After this, I don't care. But जब मैं ये कर रहा हूँ, there's nobody more important than him.
Pull back the catheter.
Yes.
अब आपने all out करना है, pull back the catheter, he doesn't understand. So you have to say, मुझे अब stent deploy करना है, ठीक है ना? तो अब हम क्या करें? आप क्या यूज़ करते हैं normally? आप ही कहते हैं, हम क्या करते हैं? हम कहते हैं okay, check position, all okay, all out. When I say all out, he knows what he has to do. And all we're going to do is he's going to hold that. And all you need to do is just pull back the... So you do that.
Allowed. Allowed.
So he is holding this, making sure that pushing catheter
Yes,
is in its place, and he's pulling the guiding catheter out. And the stent delivered. So आप जो भी यूज़ करो terminology, I'm sure they use different terminology, वकार में भी using different, लेकिन आपके टेक के साथ आपकी अंडरस्टैंडिंग होते हैं हम क्या कर रहे हैं. Quickly next please.
सर मैं अभी भिजवा दूँ
क्या?
कॉलेज के रिगार्डिंग.
वो 12:15 तो पहुँचना था वहाँ पे. 10 मिनट. हाँ, it will take only 10 minutes Sunday.
Flash.
तू गलत ना.
Thank you.
No,
Okay,